All right, let's pull back the curtain. We're going to go on the full journey of how a chat AI gets made, from what's basically a blank slate all the way to that super smart assistant you talk to every day.
You know that feeling, right? You type a question and boom, an answer just appears. It totally feels like magic. But of course, it's not. It's a long, incredibly complex, and carefully engineered journey. So that's what we're here to do. Tackle that big question. How does it actually learn?
Okay, so the whole process really boils down to three big phases. First up, you've got pre-training. That's all about learning the basic rules and patterns of language. Then, instruction fine-tuning, which teaches it how to follow our directions. And finally, preference tuning. This is the polish, learning how to be genuinely helpful and, really importantly, safe. Let's start at the very beginning.
All right, phase one, the foundation. This is ground zero. It all starts with learning from, well, a mind-boggling amount of text from all over the world.
Probably the easiest way to picture this is to imagine giving an AI a key to a digital library that's just massive. I mean, bigger than any human could ever read in 100 lifetimes. And the goal here isn't to memorize every single book. Not at all. It's about absorbing all the patterns, the grammar, the facts, even the different ways we reason, to build this foundational model of how the world works.
Now, you can't just, point the AI at the entire internet and hope for the best. That would be a disaster. The quality of that library is everything. So way before the real training even begins, teams spend months, literally months, curating all that data. They're filtering out the junk, getting rid of duplicates, making sure there's a good mix of sources. Honestly, this whole data curation step might be the single most important part in shaping what kind of AI you end up with.
So how does an AI even read all this stuff? Well, it doesn't see words the way you and I do. It sees something called tokens. And tokenization is just a fancy word for chopping up text into these smaller, bite-sized pieces that the model can actually work with.
So, for instance, a word like transformer isn't seen as one single thing. The model might break it down into three little tokens: trans, form, and And this is super efficient, right? Because now it can understand and even build new words from these familiar little building blocks, kind of like how we use prefixes and suffixes.
Okay, so it has all this data, all these tokens. What's the actual goal? It's kind of wild how simple it is. The AI's only job is to predict the very next token in a sentence. That's it. But to get good at that one simple task, it has to implicitly learn, well, everything. Grammar, facts, logic, cause and effect, you name it. That one little objective forces it to build an entire complex understanding of language.
So after phase one, you've got this model that understands language. But it's kind of like a brilliant scholar who just rambles. It knows a ton of stuff, but it has no idea how to be a helpful assistant. And that brings us to phase two, the lesson. This is where it learns to stop rambling and actually follow instructions.
And this is a really key difference. A pre-trained model can generate text. It can continue a sentence you start. But that's not the same as answering a question, is it? Instruction fine-tuning teaches the model what it should do when you ask it something. This is the step that really transforms it from just a text predictor into a useful conversational partner.
And how does it learn this? Basically by studying thousands and thousands of examples of great conversations. You've got humans creating these high-quality prompts and the perfect answers to go with them. This is where the AI learns all the stuff we actually wanted to do. Answer our questions clearly, format stuff into lists or code, ask us to clarify if it's confused, or even act like a helpful tutor if we tell it to.
This brings us to the final, and I'd say most crucial phase of training, the polish. At this point, the model works. It's functional. But is it actually good? Is it helpful? Is it safe? This is where it learns to align with what we humans actually prefer.
Let's put these two tuning phases side by side. Instruction tuning teaches the model what to do, like answer this question. But preference tuning teaches it how to do it well. Be more helpful, be honest, and critically, be harmless. This is the phase that really installs the model's personality and its safety guardrails.
So how does it learn our preferences? It's through this really clever feedback loop. It works like this. First, you give the AI a prompt and it generates a few different answers. Then, real humans come in and rank those answers from best to worst. All of that ranking data is then used to train a whole separate AI called a reward model, whose only job is to predict which answers humans will like the most. Finally, the main AI gets fine-tuned again, but this time its goal is to generate answers that will get a high score from that reward model. It's literally learning to please us based on our direct feedback.
And look, a massive part of being helpful is also being harmless. So this phase includes a lot of very specific safety tuning. The model has intentionally shown tons of examples of harmful or dangerous requests, specifically so it can learn to recognize them and, more importantly, learn to refuse them. This is exactly why a well-trained AI will tell you no if you ask it to do something dangerous.
Okay, so the core training is pretty much done. The model is built. But before it's really ready to be released into the wild, it needs a couple more things. It needs some tools to help it stay up to date, and it needs to, well, understand its own limitations.
Here's the thing. An AI's knowledge is basically frozen at the moment its training ends. So what about new information? Well, a really cool technique called Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG for short, helps solve this. It's pretty simple, really. Before the AI answers your question, it does a quick search of an external, up-to-date database. This helps ground its answer in current real-world facts and is a huge help in cutting down on those weird hallucinations where the AI just makes stuff up.
But we gotta be real here. Even with all this training, it's not perfect. These models still have real limitations. They can absolutely still hallucinate facts when they're not sure about something. They can reflect the biases that were present in their training data. And yeah, they can totally lose the plot in a really long conversation. Knowing about these limitations is probably the most important part of using these AI tools effectively and safely.
So let's just zoom out and look at the whole life cycle. As you can see, the really heavy lifting, the data curation and pre-training, that takes months. The fine-tuning steps are a bit quicker, taking a few weeks. But the key takeaway here is that the job is never really done. Evaluation, red teaming, monitoring, that stuff is happening constantly, long after the model is released to the public.
And I think this final thought really sums up the whole goal of this process perfectly. The aim isn't to build some kind of all-knowing oracle that has all the answers. The goal is to build a skilled collaborator, a tool whose strengths we can leverage and whose weaknesses we can understand and work around. Because at the end of the day, knowing how the tool is made is the absolute first step to using it well. Thanks for joining me.